this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to another care collab. Not sure these are hugely successful as far as my channel goes, but I see them as a service. I think the general goal is that by using the hashtag care collab, when people want to look for something, if they include that in their Google search, then they should come up with all the YouTube videos that there are about that subject. And you have to bear in mind the subject isn't just the initial care collab. There are updates now and again as well, where probably the same group of channels get back together, perhaps 3 months, 6 months later, and have another look at the same set of plants. This one is actually supposed to be the genuine article, as in how to look after the aforementioned genus. And on that front I feel a bit of a cheat, because asking somebody who cannot look after these and has constantly lost them seems a bit daft, but at least I know why. I've always said, you can always try something again if you know what went wrong the time before, and the time before that, and several others. My original Psychopsis lasted me quite a long time, bloomed regular, and was a nice plant. And therein was the secret. It started off as a nice plant. It had some decent roots. It had a nice set of leaves. It already had a flower spike which it perpetuated over and over again. And all I had to do was keep it going. So how did I lose that then? Guess. Frightened to death of repotting it, left it in the pot too long, lost the root system, never recovered. I even had an Alba version, which takes away the red, the rusty colours, and leaves you with the yellows and the creams. A very attractive bloom. And that one got caught in the next set of problems. So the original one, you could say that was my fault for leaving it in the same media too long, which was moss, I believe. The worst one to leave. But then we started expanding the collection and getting a set of orchids that are important to me that need to cool right down in the winter. And therein lies the demise of the Psychopsis. They're a warm grower in the main. And it was putting a hell of a stall on the plants through the winter months because of the low night temperatures and often low day temperatures as well. And leaving the plant in a poor state to try and get going again the following year. Now, a lot of people will say these are slow growers. Yeah, you get those conditions spot on and they're not slow. They are, after all, technically an oncidium type. And again, get the conditions right and they'll grow well. But they are a little fussy on that front. Now, I was hoping, I know I haven't got a plant out yet, I'll get it out in a minute. I was hoping to be the only one to do this. And have an orchid in a bag. But unfortunately, Margaret East beat me to it. Well done, Margaret. She's having a go at looking after hers in a very tight, confined space to try and get it going again. Mine is not on its last legs, but it will be soon. If it doesn't get some roots going, and possibly a new growth, then it's doomed. Why? Well, because it's going to get the cold temperatures at night. But in the bag, in theory, I can bring it into the house. And if I bring it into the house and keep it warm, it may well pull through the winter. That's my theory. So if it doesn't, then, it's not going to last. It's staying green, the leaves are staying, they're not shriveled, the pseudobulbs aren't shriveled, and it does have something growing. It looks like it might be a new growth, but if that is a new growth, it's pretty pathetic. Right, Psychopsis. Mine's called Psychopsis butterfly. It is in fact a primary cross between, I think it's Sandaray and Papilio. Sandaray being quite a small Psychopsis. All the blooms on Psychopsis are similar, apart from the alba forms, which obviously drop the rusty colours and the reds and browns and just leave the yellows and creams. But one of the things I will say is if you're going to get one, try and get one that you can see, not a picture. Try and get one that you can check the roots and check the leaf quality, check the pseudobulbs aren't shriveled. Try and get a good one to start with, and then you're starting running, okay. Now, these come from an environment, you've heard me talk about montane forests, haven't you? Yeah? The majority of montane forests are where our cool growers grow, like our Masdevallias and our Draculas, and the Restrepias and the other Pleurothalids, Miltoniopsis, all those sorts of things. So if I said that came from a montane forest, you'd say, don't be daft, they're warm growers. That's why these are finicky. They come from warm montane forests, which are not that common. Because basically what you're looking at, normally you'd be looking at quite a deep valley with relatively steep forested sides that's quite close to sea level up in the bottom, so the temperature stays up. But with the rainfall and everything, that moisture in that warm air has to go somewhere, and it rises. And as it rises up through the forests, therein lies one of the things that people forget. A warm montane forest has got some of the biggest airflow of any of the orchid environments. It's almost like a warm, moist wind. It's not a gentle movement at all. That air movement going up through the warm montane forests, cooling as it goes, forming a mist. So very, very humid, but still warm, but it moves and it's constantly being replaced. Yeah? So, what can we say? You need air movement, and you need good air movement. It's one of those vital factors that seems to, you can get, if you get a good plant, you probably get away with growing it on a windowsill, possibly for some considerable time, maybe even forever. But those conditions are not right. So you'd be lucky, and people will be lucky with them. But if you've got one that's struggling, then it won't put up with an environment that's not as close as possible to what it should have, which is why at the moment it stays out here. I normally get reasonable temperatures. We've had no sun today, so I'm stuck at, well, I always average these two because this one reads low and that one reads high. It's about 22 degrees out here today. That's about the lowest temperature this would like to be in during the daytime. It should be heading up more like 27, 28. Yeah? And every day where the conditions aren't right puts stress on the plant. And when a plant's got virtually no roots anyway, any other little stress is going to put it under extreme stress. And they can go downhill quite fast. Now, I don't know whether this one's going to make it. I have no idea. But you'll get, in amongst the other videos, you will get people say, whatever you do, don't get the plant wet. Don't get the pseudobulbs wet. Where these come from, they're wringing wet. So why do they get away with it? First of all, they've already got an established root system. And what else have we just mentioned that's going on? Air movement, constant air movement. That's why they get away with it. It's as simple as that. It doesn't get chance to settle and allow bacteria and microbes to form, which can cause the rot that we often get in our own environments. It's that airflow that makes the difference. So whether mine makes it or not, I don't know. It's a tiny little plant. Now at the moment I put the moss on there for the extra humidity, but as I've got it out the bag now, we'll have a look at it, and I'm going to pull that moss back now so that it's not actually touching the plant. I'm leaving it on the pot. It can stay on the pot. I'm just pulling it back away from the plant a bit now. Get some air around the base of the plant and see what happens. But at the moment, even the little seedling bulbs haven't rotted. Now this is wet, this is very wet, but the plant itself isn't. But just touching that leaf, it feels cool. It's too cold, it's not warm enough. So I'm wondering whether, given that it's about 24, 25 in the house I think at the moment, and certainly in, what is it now, end of August, end of September into October, the heating will start kicking on, at least in the mornings, to keep the house comfortable during the day. And because obviously the house is insulated and everything, it doesn't cool down that much at night. So the temperatures will be better for it, but not the humidity in the house. But the humidity in that bag in the house might start this growing a bit better, and it might not. One of my Psychopsis, the Alba form, I lost that because I realised the temperatures were too cold out here in the winter, that right, we'll bring it in the house. The drop in humidity and it just killed the plant. It didn't make it through the winter, even though I thought I was doing it a favour by keeping it warmer. It lost its humidity. Yeah. Right. Some say they don't like root disturbance. Quite honestly, that is, I won't say it's wrong, but it's based on every other type of orchid that is a bit fussy. If you get the timing right when you repot it, you'll probably be okay. Yeah? So what you're doing is you're waiting for new root growth, which means if there is some root loss on the existing plant, it's not so bad because it's being replaced with the new roots. And that really goes across the board with all orchids. It's just that some are more susceptible to root loss than others. They're not happy about being disturbed. I've certainly found that out the hard way. And I've also repotted. I repotted one some time ago, not even thinking about whether there was any new roots growing. The media was going off. It was a nice big large one I had initially. But I lost the plant as a consequence because the roots failed. Change of media, took it out of the moss, put it in something else. Now this one's been on a mount and it failed miserably on the mount. And I'd still say that it failed miserably on the mount because I was getting water on the plant, but probably had insufficient airflow to dry it off quickly, so it was staying wet. But, anyway, that's my effort, abysmal though it is. I'm not ashamed of it because I've managed to keep it alive so far. On the mount it was dying, I was losing leaves, and these leaves were quite shriveled, so I thought, well, it's a goner. Well, let's try it in a pot in a bag and see if I can at least get it to hold and maintain itself up to some point where it can possibly push out a new growth. The problem is obviously the photosynthesis has been greatly reduced because of it's in a polythene bag. Now if it comes in the house I can put it somewhere in bright light. The other thing is there's light levels for these. Some say they grow best shady and others say they need quite good light. You have to accept from ground level in a montane forest to the tops of the trees, yeah, the light level doesn't change too much because of the mist and the fog that's often there during the day. So light penetration is not as great as if there was no mist or fog, where the light there would be shafts of bright sunlight coming down through the tree canopy in places. But these are very, very rarely found where any direct sun goes. But some say they need bright light. It might even vary across the species. There's not many species. I think there's 5, maybe 6. There's not too many. Yeah. As I said, they were once classed as oncidiums. They got given their own genus. A bit like the Miltoniopsis. They were once classed as Miltonias, but then because they come from a different place and grow quite differently, they were given their own genus as well. So anyway, guidance from me you take with a pinch of salt, because I've lost quite a lot. These were in the same category as the Zygopetalums and me. I killed a lot of them. It's just, if ever I see a quality one of these for sale, I don't care what it costs, I will have it. Because I know if I start with a good one and maintain the root system, I'll probably do okay. But if it's going to spend its whole life out here, I won't do okay because it will go downhill in the winter. Now gradually I'm getting my winter temperature up a degree or two. I started off down at 12 for my winter resters, and each year I've come up one. And this year, in theory, I'll be at 16. We did 15 last year for the winter, which means on the thermostat it sits at 15. When it touches 14, which is like 14.999, in other words, it's just dropped out of 15, it kicks the heater on. Yeah? And then when it touches 16, it kicks it off again. So that particular unit, a lot of people say it's got a 2-degree differential. It hasn't really. It's got 1 and a tiny bit degrees differential, because as soon as it leaves 15, it kicks the heater on, and as soon as it touches 16, it kicks it off again. So instead of setting it at 15 this year, it will be 16. So each year I'm going up one. Obviously a little bit more expense with the heating, but you know, there are some plants out here that appreciate that little bit of extra. And the idea is it's an experiment with the cooler resting type dendrobiums to see how warm I can get the winter before they stop blooming. If they do. You know, new information on that front is basically there's quite a few of the resting. You know, if you've got an annually deciduous dendrobium, it's a rester. Why does it drop its leaves? Because it can't support them during its winter rest, yeah? So that is pretty straightforward. And the first thing I've noticed is where I've been creeping the temperature up is they don't drop their leaves every year. They take longer to drop them. And one of them at the moment has still got last year's leaves coming towards the end of this year. So they're hanging on to their leaves longer, but they haven't reduced their blooming. So that's an experiment running alongside. Anyway, I think we will try this in the house for the winter time. Nice bright windowsill, because winter light in the UK is not that bright. Not above a radiator, that might be pushing it a bit, but somewhere where it can get some reasonable warmth and doesn't get shut behind a curtain at night. So we will see if we can find somewhere suitable for it. But pretty leaves, lovely patterning on the leaves. Let's get that in a bit closer. Lovely leaves, I really do like them. Looks like somebody scribbled all over them. Really attractive. And as I said, my pseudo bulbs have plumped up since it's been in the bag. They were quite shriveled, but they are small. So, back in your bag, and what a lot of people don't realise, if you're going to do a bag treatment for any reason, whether it's dendrobium canes to try and get some kikis to grow, there's several reasons, but if it's just to try and produce some roots, the thing that is quite important is blowing the bag up. Firstly, it stops the bag touching the leaves, which might be a condensation point that's too much. But the other thing it does is, what do we breathe out? Carbon dioxide. Plants like that. It's like getting a CO2 boost. There are some types of plants, I'm not going to name which, that are often grown in enclosed spaces where the CO2, you know, they use cylinders and actually bump up the CO2 quite dramatically to get extra growth. So, it's funny, isn't it? Contradiction in terms. We're trying to be encouraged to eat more plant-based stuff rather than meat-based stuff. Yeah? And plants grow an awful lot better with extra carbon dioxide in the air. And we're spending all our time trying to get rid of it. Food for thought. In the days of the dinosaurs, when everything was giant, there was a lot of volcanic action around. And there was an awful lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that isn't there. You know, it disappeared when all that action stopped. But why do you think the plants and the trees grew so big? So blow the bag up. Get a good twist, try and seal as much of that air in as possible, and that helps stop it touch the leaves, and then put my windy thing round and try and seal it as best I can, keep that air in. And then that's this has already come off the bottom shelf, where I was thinking that's where the cold air comes in. So we've got it on a higher shelf now where it gets more light and should stay a little bit warmer. But if ever that's going to be a good plant, it's not going to be this year. And if I can get it to survive the winter, it may grow better next year. But as I said, I'm not the best person to ask. But just remember, a warm montane forest is pretty special. It's not a cool grower. These are warm growers, but from those really misty, foggy forest areas, steep ravines, places like that, because you're not going to get a warm montane forest on flat land. It doesn't happen like that. It's to do with the way the warm air has got no way out apart from up the sides. It goes up through the trees, forms all the mist and fog and everything, but it's warm air, not cool air. So it is pretty special. And it's probably why a lot of people struggle with them, is because that's pretty difficult to recreate. I could create it in here, turn all the fans on, turn the heater on, turn Hurricane Hector on, and shut off the inlet and the extractor fan. I would have a warm montane forest in about half an hour. You'd have a job to see across the room, because it will be up 90–95%, yeah? And I'd have mist, everything in here would start dripping, but it would be warm. That's the difference. Anyway, that's my take. Not a lot of useful information there, I must admit, but then, like I said at the beginning, I don't grow these so good. So what I've done is try and point out why, which should leave the information you need to grow them better. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.